What's up, everybody? Man, today's vlog is gonna be insane. I'm gonna go through my biggest win ever so far playing high stakes poker. This is one of the best vlogs from the history of this channel and definitely one of my favorites as well. But first, let me tell you about Replay Poker. Replay Poker is an online platform where you can play poker for free and test your skills without the risk of losing real money. There you can play versus players from all skill levels in a website that offers a vast selection of poker games and provides a variety of fun experiences for every player. And the best part of it is that it requires no money to play and no software to download it. Join me and other players from all over the world in their website by clicking the first link in the description and following the instructions to join. Now coming back for today's vlog, I tell you up front that there's gonna be a lot of interesting hands in this session that I wish I played differently, and let's get straight to it because this intro is already big enough. I buy in for 2000 and I clock in on the Bink app, and the first hand in this session I see King Queen suited from the small blind. Hijack raises to 30 and here we're gonna 3-bet for sure. I make it $120 to go, and then player on the hijack 4 bets to $260. He looks like a good player, one that wouldn't only 4-bet with aces, kings, queens, ace king. Nowadays I know him, his name is Kenta Fukuhara and he's from Japan. He made a great sizing here, especially if he has a lot of value. And with queen suited here, I believe my hand is just too good to fold, and most likely the best option is to call, and that's what I do. I call 140 more and we go heads up to a flop that comes 6-6-10 rainbow. That's a really dry flop, one that will oftentimes miss both of us. I check, he c-bets 130 and I decided to fold and he wins the hand. This table's got some tough players so far, and you can tell this is a tough table when you keep seeing lots of raises and re-raises. Plus, when you actually got a strong hand like we do right now, of course we got someone 3-betting us in our left. I see pocket kings on the low jack and I open raise to 30. Hijack quickly 3-bets to $100. He seems like a good player and I don't want to 4-bet an amount that gives him a good price to call in position and play post flop. So I make it $310, which is a little more than the advisable sizing from GTO Wizard. He calls and we go heads up to a flop that comes 5-8-9 rainbow. Most likely this flop missed both of us, and here I believe the best option is c-betting to protect my equity, and I decide to c-bet $250, which is around 40% of the pot. He thinks for around 30 seconds and folds, and will win this hand. My friend Fukuhara left the table and I decided to go to his spot to get a better table footage, and also I didn't want a dead guy on my left. He was a good player and he was 3-betting me pretty often, and I'd rather not to have a player like that in my left, so I decided to change. And after a while, you already know what this sign means. Some players arrived to the table and they were really passive, which is great, playing 5-10 no limit hold'em cash games versus someone who is not playing optimally. Seems like my big friend Harry realized that and came to the table to play with us as well. And the first hand will be versus Harry. We see pocket queens on the small blind. Hijack raises to 30 and Harry 3-bets from the button to $100. We're gonna call 4-bet here for sure. Harry covers us and I cannot 4-bet a sizing that Harry would be able to call profitably in position. So I decided to 4-bet to $310. Harry folds, and from this moment on we're gonna start running really hot. We're on early position with pocket aces and Harry in the under the gun open raises to $30. I 3-bet to 100, then out of nowhere low jack called 4-bets to $250. They all fold to me, and here we're playing 250 big blinds deep. His 4-bet represents a lot of strength, so hopefully he has kings, queens, ace king. All those hands would most likely 4-bet and not fold for a 5-bet. This was supposed to be my range here, 3-betting the under the gun and getting cold 4-bet from the early position in my left. Aces is a pure 5-bet and that's what I decided to do, so I 5-bet to $650. He quickly folds, and I believe I could have done a smaller sizing here, but I didn't, and we win this hand. Next hand we see Queen 9 suited from the big blind. Under the gun raises to 30, button calls and I complete. 3 players see a flop of 9-9-3 rainbow with 1 heart. I check, under the gun checks, and button bets $60, which is a pot size bet. Button is one of the passive players I mentioned. So I believe he is pretty strong, but I don't want to scare him away. I rather call in this street and probably check raising on the turn. So I call, under the gun folds, and we go heads up to a turn that comes a jack of spades. Now the only hand that he could have and that could like this jack is jack 9, which would be disastrous. But I will keep up with the plan and check this street. I check and button bets 120, and now it's time for a raise. Effective stack is 1300 and I'm gonna make a sizing that I can shove in the river. So I decide to check raise to $360. He thinks for roughly 30 seconds and in the end he decides to fold and we win this hand. In the next hand I had just won a pot that I didn't put in this vlog because it wasn't interesting enough. But I see pocket aces on the button. Everybody folds to me and I open raise to 30. And unfortunately, small blind and big blind fold and I show my hand. But wait, oh my god. Under the gun lamped and I didn't see. And then when small blind and big blind folded and I showed under the gun, decided to fold as well. And that's pretty sad. Sorry.
I saw one, he saw one, he fold.
I feel stupid. We're winning around 1700 so far and the table got even better right now because someone at the table arrived. In the next hand I see ace-7 suited from middle position. It falls to me and I open raise to 30. Only solid player on the button calls and we go heads up to a flop that comes 9-8-6 rainbow with one club. This board is way better for his range than mine. But in this case, I got a semi-bluff and I would love to bet and see him folding. So here, I decided to c-bet $40, but I really believe that it would be better to check even when I have a semi-bluff in hand. Because that guy is solid and he knows that this flop is way better for his range calling from the button than mine open raising from middle position. And he decides to raise huge to 160. That's a pretty tough situation for me right now, especially because of the sizing he made. But if I hit a 10 or a 5, he will rarely give me a 7, so that might make it be worth it for me to call this $120, because if I hit a 10 or a 5, I'm gonna extract a lot of value from him, and I also believe the ace is good. So let's say I have 11 outs, 3 from the aces and 8 from the open-ender. So in the end, I believe the best option I have is calling, and that's what I do. I call and we go heads up to a beautiful turn, a 5 of diamonds. I'm gonna check and I expect him to bet pretty often because he has way more 7s than I do. I check and he thinks for more than 30 seconds, but in the end he decides to bet again. $280 now. Effective stack is 2600. And here the only hand I would be losing is 10-7 suited that he might have in his range, but I really think it will be rare the times that he does. So here I believe the best option is check raising and most likely shoving all in the river. But out of nowhere I decided to call and I wish to speak to myself like, what are you doing, Romulo? Check raise, bro, come on. But I didn't, and the river is not the best. A 6 of clubs. Now if he had a set or 2 pair, he might have got a full house. So here I'm gonna check and call in case he bets. So I check, he checks back, I show my hand, it's good, and I don't think I played great this hand and extracted the most value I could. But it happens and we win this one. In the next hand, we're in the small blind with ace-jack offsuit. Harry raises to 30 on the button and I'm gonna 3-bet here to 130. Harry starts tanking and in this moment, I start rooting for him not to 4-bet, otherwise I'm gonna have to fold. Most likely he is considering this because he is a very aggressive player, but instead he calls and we go heads up to a flop that comes ace-jack-jack rainbow. That's a pretty sick flop. I'm gonna c-bet here for sure, but I'm gonna make it really small so Harry can call with 90% of his range. I make it 80 to go and Harry quickly calls, turns a king, and this card favors way more my range than his, but hopefully he has a piece of it. And now I'm gonna bet again. I bet around half pot now for 210. Harry calls again and the river comes a 10 of clubs. And that's a pretty good river because there are many hands in Harry's range that end up having a good piece of this board, like flushes, like straights, even full house worse than mine. So here I'm gonna bet an amount to target flushes and straights. I make it $510, which is around 2/3 of the pot. Harry thinks for a long time and in the end he decides to fold. Flop it.
Ace Jack.
Harry is a great player and guessed my hand right away, so congrats for him. In the next hand, we see the third pocket aces of the night. We're in the small blind and hijack open raises to 30. Harry calls on the button and I'm gonna 3-bet here. My image is of a pretty aggressive player pre-flop, so here I'm gonna allow myself to 3-bet a big sizing. I make it 150 to go. Only Harry calls and we go heads up to a flop that comes King, Jack, 9, Rainbow. I'm gonna bet here for sure, but I cannot bet so small because Harry would have many pairs and gut shots here. So I decide to bet 150, which is around 45% of the pot. Harry folds.
Just fold, bro. I'm feeling like it's coming. I'm feeling like it's coming. A huge pot with you. Aces.
I had ace, 6 of spades.
After this hand, I decided to change seats inside the table. I didn't want to be on the left of Harry really. All the time I was 3-betting him, calling in like he's my friend, I don't want to be in his left. I'd rather him be in my left, and that's what I did. And the first hand in this seat, I see ace-7 suited on the big blind. Under the gun straddles to 20, which happens a lot on the 5-10 at Resorts World. The game becomes a 5-10-20, and this is what happened in this table right now. So under the gun straddles 20 and button raises to 60, I decide to 3-bet here with my ace-7 suited for 220. Only button calls and we go heads up to a pretty tricky flop. Ace, Jack, 9, Rainbow with 1 spade. In this board texture and with my hand, I could either c-bet small to protect my equity or checking. Both players are fine, and in this spot, I decided to c-bet small to $140. He quickly calls and there is a small chance I'm not winning this hand, but this chance becomes way smaller when the 7 of clubs comes in the turn. I'm gonna keep betting, and the next sizing I decide to do is 1/3 of the pot for $280. He calls again and the river is pretty safe. A 6 of diamonds. He covers me and effective stack is more than 3,000. And here I believe I made a mistake because I was feeling like if I bet and he decides to raise, I'm gonna have to fold my hand, and he looked like the type of player that would be capable of doing such thing. So instead of betting again for value, I decided to check and allow his bluffs to bluff, which didn't happen. He checks and I show my hand and he mucks, and in the end I didn't extract as much value as I wish. Again, this table dynamic is pretty interesting because there is 5 very solid players in this table and 3 or 4 players that are not that good, and 1 particular player that was splashing a lot of chips. So that's a great time to run well. And the next hand we see Queen 5 suited from the big blind. Under the gun raises to 30, hijack, cut off, button and small blind call. So here I'm gonna complete and see a flop 6 ways. The flop comes Queen 5-10 with 2 spades. We got 2 pair and we're gonna check here, so if someone bets we can check raise, which doesn't happen. Everybody checks and the turn is a blank, a 3 of hearts. Now I'm not gonna check again, I'm gonna bet to extract value from worse hands than mine. I bet 110 and only button calls. Hopefully the river is a blank, which doesn't happen. The river is a 4 of spades. Any flush would beat me, and now I have 2 options. I can bet and fold in case he raises, or I can check and call in case he bets. And I decide to go with the second option, which is checking and most likely call in case he bets. He bets 180 and this bet sounds just like a value bet to me, honestly.
I feel like I'm gonna give you $180.
That's something I do at the table naturally, like I say something to the guy and look at him to see his reaction. This guy is solid enough not to show me any type of tell or anything like that. I gotta call 180 for a pot that has 575. For this call to be profitable, I gotta be right around 20% of the times. So I'm getting a great price to call. And after considering my options, I decide to keep up with the plan and call. And he quickly shows Queen 4. So he had 2 pair and he was betting for value. But we had a slightly better hand. And we win this $755 pot. And the next hand is a pretty interesting one. I see ace-10 suited on the small blind. Early position raises to 30 and button calls. Here I could decide to call or 3-bet. Most likely I'm crushing button's range and I don't think early position's range is that strong. So I'm gonna 3-bet here. I make it 160 to go and only button calls. We go heads up to a flop that comes 10 jack queen with 1 diamond. This flop is pretty interesting because it crushes his range. Flat calling from the button and calling my 3-bet in position. He can have queen jack, queen 10, 10 jack. He can even have some straights like 9-8 suited. But I have nut advantage because I can have ace king, I can have queens, I can have jacks, I can have 10s. So I can either check or bet in here. And because I think most likely I'm winning and I don't want to allow him to see a turn in position for free, I decided to c-bet small to $100. He calls and the turn is even more interesting than the flop. It's a 9 of diamonds. Now I got a nut flush draw and I can have again the ace king, which is the nuts. I can have queens, jacks, 10s, but now it loses a little bit of strength with this 9 because any king or any 8 makes a straight. Effective stack is $1,200 and I believe here if I check I'm gonna represent a lot of weakness unless I am slow playing a huge hand like ace king. And here I got a great semi bluff, which is the nut flush draw. A king also gives me the nuts as well. And instead of checking and showing weakness, I decide to bet and show a lot of strength and transform my hand into a bluff because if he calls me right now, he is gonna have a better hand than pair of 10s with an ace high kicker. So I decide to bet an amount now that I send the message I'm gonna shove in the river. I bet $300, which is a little more than half pot. And now he goes into the tank. He thinks for like 1.5 minutes. By that time, I was thinking like, bro, just fold, please, like you're 2-pair or whatever, just fold. He kept thinking and in the end, he decides to do so and fold finally. Most likely we were losing this hand unless he was making a big Hollywood. And so far, we're winning almost $4,000. Little less. And the table was pretty interesting, not in the side of being soft because there were many good players on it, but many nice people and it was pretty fun to play. In the next hand, we're on the big blind with ace 10 suited, cutoff raises to 30, button and small blind call. Harry was the guy who open raised and I don't think his range is that strong. Buttons and small blinds range as well because otherwise I think they would 3-bet. So I decided to raise to $200 and hopefully everybody would fold and I would win this hand. But instead, small blind calls, cutoff calls and button calls. And we go 4-way to a flop that comes ace jack 5 with 2 clubs. Most likely we are winning this hand, but there is a relevant chance some of them have a piece of this board. So I'm gonna c-bet small to extract value from worse hands than mine. I c-bet 140, which is around 20% of the pot. Only Harry calls and we go heads up to a turn that is a blank, a 6 of spades. The only hands that I see Harry having here and is beating me is ace jack suited, ace jack off, ace 5 suited, but most likely I am winning here. But instead of betting, I rather controlling the pot because if I bet and Harry raises, I'm gonna be in a really terrible spot. So I check and Harry checks back. River is a queen of hearts and if I bet here, I can make all his bluffs to fold. So instead of betting, I decide to check and call in case he bets. And that's what I do. I check. Harry thinks for a while and decides to bet $420. I snap call.
You win.
Harry says I win and I show my cards and we win this almost $2,000 pot. Next hand we're in the cutoff with 10-7 suited. It folds to us and I open the raise to 30. Button and small blind calls and 3 players see a flop of 7-5-3 with 2 diamonds. Most likely we're winning here, so I decide to c-bet to $40 to protect my equity. Only button calls and we go heads up to a turn that is a king of clubs. Most likely this king didn't hit none of us and again I feel like I'm winning, so I'm gonna bet to protect my equity again. I make it $60 this time and now button raises to 160. I say this.
If you bluffed me, congrats. If you bluffed me, congrats.
And I fold and he shows ace queen offsuit.
Nice hand.
I wanted to congrats. Oh, you just wanted to be on
Nice hand, nice hand, nice hand.
No.
Congrats, he bluffed me. And now we start playing a stand-up game. This table is full of great players and the stand-up game makes it be even more dangerous for us to lose our stack. And in this hand, Harry is the only guy who is already seated because he won the hand. So I'm rooting for him. He bets and the guy folds, so that's nice.
Okay, fine.
I just... Great. Yes! Harry! Harry! Harry!
Next hand we see ace-9 offsuit from the hijack and there's a few people standing up, including myself.
Yes! 40.
I open raise to 40 and only button calls. We go heads up to a flop that comes king 5 deuce with 2 clubs. I check to the button and button checks back. Turns a king of spades. There's a relevant chance I'm winning with ace high, so I'm gonna bet to protect my equity. I bet 50 and he folds. We show our hand and we're able to sit down. In the next hand, we see ace-9 offsuit again. It's a new game, so we're standing up. Hijack raises to 30 and I 3-bet to 100. Only hijack calls and we go heads up to a flop that comes 3, 5, 6 rainbow. He checks to me and I'm gonna see bet here to protect my equity over hands that I'm beating like king queen, king jack, king 10, a bunch of things. I see bet 80 and he calls. There's a relevant chance we're losing now. Turn is a deuce of hearts. Now any 4 makes a straight, but I don't think any of us has the 4. He checks and I check back. River is a 5, he checks to us, we check again, and he shows ace-7 offsuit, lucky for us.
Yes! Yes! Let's go! I'm safe! Vámonos! I have a feeling that something bloody is about to happen.
Me too. There's gonna be some bull.
In the next hand, I see king 9 offsuit from the button. We're standing up again. It's the third stand-up game we play. Cutoff in my right raises to 30 and I 3-bet to 100. They all fold and we win. Now we're all sitting besides this very nice guy on the right and Harry on the left. And they're playing heads up and they are the last ones standing up. Nice guy raises pre-flop and Harry calls. They see a flop of jack 6 king rainbow. They both check and the turn is a 3 of hearts. They both check again and the river is a 3 of clubs. The pot has something like $120 and check out what will happen.
Aces are bad. 500.
The other double thing is only 300, right? Like...
Oh my shrimp!
Nice guy calls and Harry shows ace-3 suited. He played really well pre-flop, got lucky on the river and extracted the maximum he could. Very nice hand from him. And sadly, the nice guy lost 500 and still had to pay $50 for each player at the table. This game was dangerous, like we were all pretty deep, playing high stakes game and even a stand-up game that makes the variance be even higher. And after playing for almost 8 hours, we profit $4,920, which was at that time my biggest win ever playing cash games. And this is gonna be the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, there are hundreds of others that you might also enjoy as well. Just click any of the options in the screen. The mission of this channel is helping you become a better poker player, and see you next time.